to buy a stock that buys water rights. Real smart.
The Saudis are buying up farms that have water rights.
An acre of water just sold for $38,000.
They got hedge funds moving into Western water.
It's all about the water.
About water.
Water is like gold in the West.
We expect Denver to add another 1.5 million people by 2050.
More water will need to be diverted from the western slope.
They just need a place to store it east of the Continental Divide.
It's all about the water.
No, it's about the money.
When you touch water, you touch everything.
By its very nature, the American West is a place of extremes, contradictions, illusions, and paradoxes. Nowhere more so than in the region of the majestic Colorado River. It's a place where those extremes and contradictions make it seem like nature is in conflict with itself. A powerful river, not nurturing the desert around it, but tearing through it, cutting an ever-deepening canyon beneath the vastness of the landscape and the sky. In the American Southwest today, we face two serious challenges: growing populations and a shrinking supply of water. These two challenges are at the core of a conflict on Colorado's Front Range. Denver Water, the principal utility for metropolitan Denver, is anticipating a 100% increase in people moving into the area by 2050. They also anticipate that the natural supply of water could be reduced by as much as 20 to 30% in the same time period. To meet the increased demand, Denver Water has proposed expanding the size and capacity of a reservoir located in the foothills above Boulder, west of Denver.
After looking at the plans to enlarge Gross Reservoir, I decided to learn more about our long-term water situation. Could it be that this proposed solution might be a harbinger of more conflicts coming our way? Water's been a big part of my life. When I was 16, my high school teacher and Olympic kayaker Walter Kirschbaum asked me to join him kayaking the Green River through the gates of Ladore. I had never done anything like this before, but he was confident he could teach me what I needed to know along the way. His preliminary advice was that I should connect with the river and learn to read its currents. As it turned out, that trip was also my introduction to navigating the depth and flow of issues surrounding Western water.
Eastern Colorado. Over the past centuries, what was once a barren, semi-arid desert has been transformed. Irrigated farmland, horse property, lush suburban communities, nothing goes unwatered. Denver Water's plan to pipe more Colorado River water under the Continental Divide to be stored behind a new larger dam at Gross Reservoir has galvanized the passions of environmentalists and other Colorado citizens who oppose the project.
There was a time in American history where a lot of dams were built, and at that time in the 30s, 40s, 50s, even the 60s, there was very little sort of environmental ethic.
We know that temperatures are going to warm, and by the end of the century it'll be about 10 degrees more. And we know that for every degree of temperature, the Colorado River Basin dries out about 4%, so about 20% less water mid-century in the Colorado River.
The carbon impact of taking out 200,000 trees and doing what with them? Burning them? Well, that's a nice addition into the atmosphere.
It's an absurd proposition when we live in the high desert, arid West.
These were clearly comments coming from people who understand the crisis we face. But I wondered, how is it that in our incredibly sophisticated society, we have come to view water not as a finite commodity, but a plentiful resource, something we can and do take for granted?
Boulder Dam and the Flowers together cost a total of $108 million.
From 1880 to 1980, more than 10 tunnels were bored under the Continental Divide to move Colorado's more plentiful West Slope water into more than 30 dammed reservoirs to serve the growing cities and farms of eastern Colorado. This enlargement of the Gross Reservoir is the most recent dam proposal. To fill this expanded reservoir, Denver Water plans to divert water from the Williams Fork Drainage and Fraser River through the existing Moffett Tunnel, which passes under the Continental Divide, to channel it into South Boulder Creek and finally into the enlarged Gross Reservoir. To accommodate this additional water, the existing dam will be raised 131 feet by a new structure built on the downstream side. Environmental studies estimate that upwards of 200,000 trees will have to be cut between the existing and the future high water mark. Once the project is completed, Gross Reservoir will be able to store over 50% more water than it presently does. Denver Water expects to fill the dam over a 5-year period, primarily during years when the Colorado mountains receive above-average snowfall.
We utilize a process called scenario planning, where we envision what the future might look like under different economic development scenarios or different patterns of growth, and we're trying to position ourselves to be able to meet any one of those alternative futures.
This brings up an important but pivotal question. Will there be sufficient water to actually fill the expanded reservoir once the new dam construction is completed?
It's a gamble, and they're willing to make the gamble because they have an obligation to provide water for Denver and some of its suburbs.
There is not enough water to fill the reservoirs on the Colorado River Basin right now. In fact, the two main reservoirs are about half empty.
Bruised and confused, I was thrashed by raging rapids, sucked from my boat and flushed through miles of frigid, roiling water. Now I'm surrounded by a different kind of turbulence, the Gross Reservoir debate. To fully grasp the complexity of the controversy's undercurrents, I needed to first understand the ticking time bomb of our growing population.
The elephant in the room that people just don't talk enough about. People keep moving here. People keep moving to the dry West. It's how much water we have should determine how many people are going to be here. It's just not an endless resource.
Although the population of Denver is increasing, the water consumption per capita is in fact decreasing. Good news, right? Maybe not though, because the state's future growth hasn't yet been factored into the equation.
Are we going to grow forever? And my question is, where is the water coming from? And of course, you cannot close the borders, but I think that we do need to look into, before we allow additional development, make sure that there is a water supply for it.
Is our current rate of population growth even sustainable within Metro Denver and the other expanding cities on the eastern slope? Sustainable or not, people want to live here. In our beautiful state with 300 days of sunshine, a strong economy, and unlimited recreation.
We're not looking to expand the area that we serve as Denver Water. From Denver Water's perspective, we're looking to grow up and not out. And that means higher density, more efficiency, lower water use per capita, greater ability to incorporate reuse, recycling.
Good question about population growth in the West. Again, intensely personal questions. You think climate change is controversial. I have no answers other than, wow, what's the old Indian saying? If we're not careful, we're going to get where we're going. And I sure don't like where that is right now.
Despite Denver Water's efforts to address the concerns about the impact of the construction project, environmentalists believe Denver Water has not explored all the conservation alternatives to building an enlarged reservoir.
On a per capita basis, even though population is going up, water usage is going down, and that's due to conservation efforts. And they do have conservation programs, absolutely, at Denver Water, and we applaud them for that.
About half of all the water is used to keep the grass green.
In Southern California, the water utilities have actually paid people to take out their lawns, which in the long run has been a net savings for them.
Exhausting all possible remedies.
The smart way to store it is underground.
Are conservation alternatives a viable option to enlarging the existing dam? Exploring how water is actually used by Front Range residents, 2 items stand out. 12% is used for toilets and 50% for watering lawns. The toilet. Is it possible that a technological innovation can reverse the water waste inherent in our contemporary hyper-hygienic lifestyle? This low-flow toilet currently on the market employs a new technology that requires only 0.8 of a gallon per flush. If all the toilets in Denver were high efficiency, then indoor water use could drop 35%, creating a possible savings of millions of gallons per year. But is this alone a viable alternative to expanding gross reservoir? The issue seems to be more complex than simply replacing water fixtures.
The tricky part about municipal conservation is much of indoor use is what's called non-consumptive use water. So the water is diverted from the stream, it enters your house, you bathe with it, wash dishes or clothes, cook with it, but it then almost completely returns via the sewer system to a water treatment plant and then returns back to the river. Much water use is of that form, so it's non-consumptive.
In the last 19 years or so, we've reduced our water use by over 20%. We're now using about as much water we did as we were in the 1970s. We sponsored and promoted legislation in Colorado that requires that only water-smart fixtures be sold in Colorado.
The lawn. The very green, well-watered, weed-free lawn. Sprinkler mania, thriving in the desert. How did grass become a symbol of our prosperity, and a sodded statement of financial success?
Across the Front Range, including Denver Water, about half of all the water is used to keep the grass green. It is significantly cheaper, easier, faster, and smarter to pay people to take out their grass than it is to build new dam projects.
Las Vegas had this famous program called Cash for Grass that everybody used to laugh about because the name's kind of clever. Los Angeles Metropolitan did similar efforts. Clearly to the water companies, it's made a lot of sense. As expensive as it's been, and I think LA may have spent $1 billion on this, if memory serves correctly. In the long run, it's been worth it to them because it's not just the savings now, it's year after year after year. You're not going to be putting that water on grass.
We encourage our customers to use more drought-tolerant grass species instead of bluegrass. Well, we have a tiered rate structure so that the more water you use, the more expensive it is per gallon of water. So there's a built-in incentive in our rate structure to use water more efficiently.
I mean, the fact that Denver Water is delivering the same amount of water they were delivering in the late 60s is evidence that they're doing what they can to try to use water more efficiently and effectively. They're putting people in smaller places that don't have lawns, and I think the cities serve that function.
Storing water in aquifers instead of behind dams is an idea that water managers are considering, and in some places have actually employed. Replenishing our aquifer would avoid the multiple costs which are part of building new dams, and in so doing, avoid the inevitable evaporative losses that come from open reservoirs.
Aquifer storage and recovery is an idea whose time has come. We have the technology, both the drilling and I would argue the ability to track this water underground nowadays that we didn't have historically. It makes a whole lot of sense. To me, if I had to bet or say, I'd say aquifer storage and recovery is a great idea and we need to pursue it.
Much of the Front Range of Colorado sits atop the Denver Basin, our primary geological aquifer, which stretches from Colorado Springs to Fort Collins.
We're doing experiments of drilling to look at recharging that aquifer and taking excess water and storing it underground, and then can we pull it back out again for use within our service area. But because of water quality concerns, we have to treat it before we put it into the ground. And then it takes energy to inject it into the ground, and then it takes energy to pull it back up again, and then we have to retreat it and then deliver it to our service area. So it's expensive, but it is something that when compared to a new dam, for example, or a new water project, might well be cost effective and certainly is environmentally responsible.
You know, most people in the U.S. don't realize they live on reused water, right? I mean, if you're in New Orleans, the water you're using has been reused time over and again by upstream users. What's been sensitive is what people call direct potable reuse, so literally taking sewer water, cleaning it up, and reusing it. We have the technology to do that. It does arguably even better job than nature, assuming you have the right safeguards in place. We're going to see a lot more of that.
Beer, made from water recycled from our daily use, cleaned at a wastewater treatment facility, and then moved along and utilized by our breweries.
Oh, wow.
It's delicious.
Yay!
We're able to reuse all of the water that we import into our service areas. We also have a recycled water treatment plant where we treat wastewater and then bring it back into our system for use, mostly for irrigation purposes, but also for some industrial purposes.
All day I face the barren waste without the taste of water. Cool water.
As settlers moved west of the Mississippi River, reports of a western desert began to creep eastward where arable land was plentiful. So alien were the eastern notions of withering heat, wind, and arid land that people simply refused to believe it. This reality of the West was in dramatic conflict with the God-given belief that moisture released from broken soil would surely fall back to earth as rain. Whether from a sense of destiny or a more raw instinct to survive, early farmers quickly learned that rainfall on the plains was erratic, and that river water from the mountains would have to somehow be stored for use throughout the year. Today, 80% of the water from the Colorado River still goes to agriculture. Another potential source of water for municipalities could come from buying water rights from farmers and ranchers, a plan which could conceivably bring city dwellers more water and farmers more cash. But what would happen to the farmland? Would it dry up and return to its desert state?
Permanent dry up is not a desirable solution. We're looking at a huge, I think we're looking at a huge socioeconomic change if you're starting to look at, if we start losing agricultural lands. Look, they don't make any more water. We got what we have.
If you're a farmer and you have, say, 400 acres and it's irrigated, the water is probably worth more than the land. Windsor's, the town right now is ringed with irrigated farms. And so every time they annex a new area or want to grow, they grow on top of an irrigated farm. And so that the cities that are growing can buy water that they're literally putting, farms that they're literally putting out of business anyway.
Denver Water has not gone into the agricultural market to buy water rights in eastern Colorado. And if we were to do that, I would want to do it in a way that doesn't permanently take agricultural land out of production. That having been said, the Front Range faces an enormous growth problem, both with taking water out of agriculture to supply existing cities, as well as sprawl growth and development literally eating up acres and acres of farmland every single day, literally.
I mean, this is one of the fundamental conflicts, right? Water for food versus water for municipalities. And in the Colorado River, 80% of the water is used by agriculture. It's some of the most valuable agriculture in the United States in winter, because in the lower Colorado, you have a year-round growing season, and it's where our winter vegetables come from. So, I have said in the 21st century, this is in the Colorado River, this is all about the future of ag in many ways.
Displacing more Colorado River water from agriculture would only add to the losses currently being exported to foreign interests.
The Saudi government purchased farms in, I believe it was Arizona or Southern California. They grow the alfalfa there and then ship the alfalfa to Saudi Arabia to feed the dairy cows to produce the milk. And that's water that's lost from our system, in this case the Colorado River, to provide food, the milk, in another part of the world.
40% of water in the basin roughly goes to forages, so for animal feed. And one way to at least help reduce the imprint of ag's greenhouse gas emissions is to change our diets.
Presently, Denver Water takes an all-of-the-above approach, which includes conservation plus expanding gross reservoir.
In some ways, that first teenage kayaking trip has brought me to appreciate the complexity of Western water issues and the conundrum around the Gross Reservoir Expansion Project. Population growth, climate change, and conservation alternatives are all complex puzzles with no easy or expedient solutions. As Yogi Berra once noted, it's tough to make predictions, especially about the future.
One fact is indisputable. The future of the Gross Reservoir is closely linked to the future of the Colorado River and has become the focal point for everything that has happened and will happen in the Colorado River Basin. The changes that have already been made to the Colorado River can be viewed as either a miraculous achievement or a tragedy of errors.
The good news is we got solutions. We got technology at the right prices. What we really need help is on the policy front. And by 2100, at the really high-end temperature projections, you could lose 50% or more of the Colorado River due to evap. I mean, that's the kind of seriousness of these flow reductions that we need to take to heart and figure out how to deal with now, not then. Because it's too late then.
Hopeful thoughts on the troubled waters of the Colorado River. One question remains. Will another dam set us on a course to a sustainable future? Or will it only enable more unchecked population growth and unbridled water consumption? I would hope that rather than finding ourselves mired in the moment as our civilization ebbs towards collapse, our better instincts will inspire us to live simply and learn to live with less.